The morning started like any other day at the Galactic Academy. Students from dozens of different worlds filed into the large classroom, talking quietly among themselves. Ryan Martinez sat in his usual seat, third row from the front, watching as his classmates settled in. Most of them looked nothing like humans. There were the Lear, small creatures with big eyes and ears that moved around like radar dishes. The chicks looked like giant insects with hard shells and clicking mouths. Some students were tall and covered in scales, while others seemed to float rather than walk. Ryan was one of only 2 humans in the class. The other was Lisa Harper, who sat a few rows behind him. Humans were still new to the galaxy, and sometimes Ryan felt like everyone was watching them, waiting to see what they would do next. It made him nervous, but he tried not to show it. Instructor Vexnar entered the room and everyone fell silent. The Krell teacher was nearly 8 feet tall, covered in silver scales that caught the light. His voice was deep and rumbling, even through the translation device everyone wore. "Today we will study predator behavior," Vexnar announced. He held up a clear sphere and Ryan could see something moving inside it. "I have brought examples for you to observe." Several students leaned forward to get a better look. Others moved their seats backward. Ryan noticed the Lear students were trembling, their earstalks flat against their heads. Vexnar placed the sphere on the demonstration table at the front of the room. "These are Ravix cubs. They are 3 months old. In 6 more months, they will be large enough and strong enough to kill most species in this room." Ryan felt Lisa lean forward behind him. "Is this safe?" she whispered. Before anyone could answer, Vexnar opened the sphere. 3 small creatures tumbled out onto the table. They were about the size of house cats, but built differently. Their bodies were compact and muscular, covered in purple fur that shimmered with small scales. Each cub had 6 eyes that moved independently, scanning the room. Their paws had claws that looked sharp even at this young age. One of the cubs opened its mouth and roared. The sound was high-pitched but unmistakably aggressive. It echoed through the classroom, and the effect was immediate. Students jumped from their seats. The Lear near the front actually ran for the door, their small legs carrying them as fast as they could move. The chicks started making a clicking sound and released a smell like burning plastic that made Ryan's eyes water. Even the larger students, built like rhinoceros, backed away from the table. Ryan watched as half the class fled the room. The ones who stayed looked terrified, pressing themselves against the back wall. But Ryan wasn't looking at them. He was watching the cubs. They weren't attacking. They weren't chasing anyone. The 3 small creatures were huddled together on the table, their bodies low, their tails wrapped tight around themselves. Their roaring continued, but Ryan recognized the sound. It wasn't aggression. It was fear. "Fascinating," Vexnar said, making notes on his electronic pad. He seemed completely calm as students panicked around him. "Notice the universal fear response. Even species who have never seen a Ravix before recognize the danger. The forward-facing eyes, the sharp teeth, the aggressive sounds. These are predator markers that trigger instinctive fear." Ryan stood up slowly. Lisa grabbed his arm. "What are you doing?" "Ryan, sit down." "They're scared," Ryan said quietly. He gently pulled his arm free and started walking toward the front of the room. The remaining students gasped. One of the Lear who had been brave enough to stay made a sound that the translator turned into words. "The human has lost his mind. Maybe they were right." Ryan was walking toward 3 baby predators who could probably hurt him badly, even at their small size. His heart was beating fast and his hands felt cold, but he kept walking because he understood something the others didn't. These cubs had been taken from somewhere safe and put in a room full of strange creatures under bright lights with loud sounds and unfamiliar smells. They were doing exactly what any scared animal would do. They were trying to look dangerous so nothing would hurt them. "Student Martinez," Vexnar said, his voice carrying a warning. "Please return to your seat." Ravix cubs may look small, but their hunting instinct can activate without warning. They have attacked handlers even when raised from birth. Ryan didn't stop walking. He thought about his grandfather's ranch in New Mexico, about all the times he had approached nervous horses or scared dogs. His grandfather had taught him the rules. Move slowly. Don't stare directly at them. Don't show your teeth by smiling. Don't reach for them. Let them come to you. "They're not hunting," Ryan said, keeping his voice calm. "Look at how they're standing. Their ears are back. Their bodies are low. They're defending themselves, not attacking. He reached the front of the room and did something that made everyone hold their breath. Ryan sat down on the floor. He made himself smaller, less threatening. He was now below the level of the table where the cubs stood. "Hey there," he said softly, not looking directly at them. "You're okay. Nobody here is going to hurt you." The cubs stopped roaring. The silence in the room was complete. Even Vexnar had stopped taking notes. Every eye in the classroom was on Ryan as he sat cross-legged on the cold floor, 5 feet away from 3 predator cubs. The largest of the 3 cubs tilted its head. Its 6 eyes focused on Ryan, studying him. Its ears, which had been pressed flat against its skull, slowly rotated forward. The cub was curious. "That's right," Ryan murmured. "I'm not scary. I'm just sitting here. You can come check me out if you want." The large cub took a step forward on the table, then another. Its nose was working, trying to catch Ryan's scent. Ryan could see the intelligence in those multiple eyes as the cub tried to decide if the strange creature was dangerous or safe. Lisa had her electronic pad out now, recording everything. Whatever happened next, there would be proof of it. The cub reached the edge of the table and paused. For a moment, Ryan thought it might jump back to its siblings. This was the moment when instinct would take over, when the cub would decide he was a threat. Instead, the cub jumped down from the table and walked toward him. A Lear student made a high whistling sound. One of the chicks fainted and fell with a clatter, but Ryan remained perfectly still as the Ravix cub approached. He could see every detail now, the way its muscles moved under its fur, the slight shimmer of scales between the purple hairs, the sharp claws that clicked softly on the floor. The cub sniffed his knee, then his hand. Its whiskers brushed against his skin, long and sensitive. Ryan could feel the heat coming from the small body. The cub was warm, almost hot to the touch. Then the cub pressed its head against Ryan's leg and made a sound. Not a roar, not a growl. It was a chirp, high and questioning, almost like a bird even though it came from a predator's throat. "Oh," Ryan breathed. Very slowly, he lifted his hand and placed it on the cub's head. The fur was coarser than he expected, almost like wire but warm. The cub leaned into his touch and its eyes closed halfway. The other 2 cubs had been watching closely. They must have decided their sibling was safe, because they suddenly scrambled off the table in a tumbling rush of limbs and tails. Within seconds, all 3 Ravix cubs were pressed against Ryan, climbing partly into his lap, making those strange chirping sounds. "Impossible," Vexnar whispered. He moved closer, his scientific curiosity stronger than his caution. "In 20 years of teaching, I have never seen Ravix cubs respond this way to an unfamiliar being. Even their handlers use protective gear and drugs to keep them calm." Lisa had come down from her seat, still recording. "Ryan, how did you do that?" Ryan looked up at her. One of the cubs was now completely curled up in his lap, already falling asleep as if it had found the safest place in the universe. "I didn't do anything special. I just treated them like scared kids instead of monsters." "But they are predators," a chick student said, brave enough to approach now that the danger seemed to have passed. "Apex predators. We evolved to fear these markers. It kept our species alive. How are you not afraid?" Ryan thought about that while he scratched behind the ears of the cub in his lap. The creature stretched and made a sound like rocks grinding together, but somehow it seemed happy. "Humans are predators too," he said finally. "We have forward-facing eyes like they do. We eat meat. Our ancestors hunted in packs. But we're also social. We made friends with wolves and turned them into dogs. We keep cats in our homes even though cats are hunters. We learned a long time ago that predators aren't just killing machines. They're smart. They're social. They can form bonds." Vexnar was taking notes again, his claws moving rapidly across his pad. "This is remarkable. Student Martinez, would you consent to further observation? With proper safety measures, of course." "Will it hurt the cubs?" Ryan asked immediately. "No," Vexnar assured him, "but your interaction with them is unlike anything in our records. If humans can naturally calm predator species, this has enormous implications." Ryan nodded. The cubs were safe and comfortable. That was what mattered to him. What Ryan didn't know was that Lisa's recording was already spreading through the Academy's network. By the time class ended, it would be on 17 different worlds. By the next morning, 8 million beings would watch it. And across the galaxy, a single question was being asked in hundreds of languages. What exactly were humans, And should everyone know? The video spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within 2 days, Ryan Martinez became the most watched human in known space, though he didn't realize it at first. His personal communicator started buzzing constantly with messages from news agencies, research centers, and military organizations from species he had never even heard of before. Lisa found him sitting in the Academy garden, under one of the oak trees that had been brought from Earth. The garden was a quiet place where plants from different worlds grew together under carefully controlled artificial sunlight. It was one of Ryan's favorite spots when he needed to think. "You're famous," Lisa said, sitting down next to him on the bench. "There are 17 different documentary teams trying to get interviews with you. The video has been viewed over 50 million times now." Ryan watched students walk past on the nearby path. More of them were staring at him now. Some looked curious. Others looked afraid. "I just sat down with some scared animals. I don't understand why it's such a big deal." "Because most species in the galaxy can't do what you did," a new voice said. They both turned to see Professor Halrex approaching. The elderly Venn scholar was one of the most respected teachers at the Academy. He had 4 arms that currently held several electronic pads covered in notes. His body was covered in what looked like leaves, marking him as an herbivore species. But despite his gentle appearance, his mind was considered one of the sharpest in the galaxy. "May I sit?" he asked. When Ryan nodded, the professor settled onto the bench with a soft rustling sound. "I have spent the last 2 days reviewing everything we know about human evolution and psychology. What I found is troubling." "Troubling how?" Lisa asked, her voice defensive. "Not troubling for you," Halrex said quickly. "Troubling for our understanding of how galactic society works. Tell me, Ryan Martinez, what do you know about the predator-prey paradigm?" Ryan thought back to his first semester classes. Most species in the galaxy evolved either as predators or prey. Prey species outnumber predators about 20 to 1. When everyone started exploring space and meeting each other, the civilization that developed was built mostly by prey species. Things like cooperation, avoiding conflict, making everyone agree before doing anything. Those are prey species values. "Correct," Halrex said, his leaves rustling. "And what about the predator species that exist in the galaxy?" Lisa answered this time. "They're usually kept separate, restricted, or watched closely, because their aggressive instincts make them dangerous to prey species civilization." Halrex nodded. "Yes. The Krell, like Instructor Vexnar, are one of the few predator species that integrated successfully into galactic society. They did this by developing a strict honor code that helps them control their hunting instincts. The Vorks are another example, though they require therapy and constant monitoring. Most predator species never even make it to space travel, because they destroy themselves in wars before they develop the technology." "Okay," Ryan said slowly. "But what does this have to do with me and the Cubs?" Halrex pulled up a hologram from one of his pads. It showed a human skull, rotating slowly in the air. "Humans are predators, Ryan Martinez. Apex predators. Your forward-facing eyes give you excellent depth perception for tracking prey. Your teeth include canines for tearing meat. Your ancestors hunted by running after prey until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. Humans are built to kill." Ryan felt uncomfortable hearing it explained that way, but he couldn't argue with the facts. "Yet," Halrex continued, pulling up another image, "humans also show extreme pack-bonding behavior, even with other species. You took wolves, which are predators, and turned them into dogs that live in your homes. You keep cats as pets even though cats are obligate carnivores that hunt for pleasure. You give names to your vehicles, your weapons, even your planets, and treat them like they have personalities. You form emotional attachments to almost anything." "We're social," Lisa said. "Lots of species are social. The degree is unusual," Halrex corrected. "Most predator species are solitary or form small family groups. Humans form massive cooperative societies with millions of individuals while keeping all your predator instincts. You can kill, but you choose when to kill and when to protect. You can look at another predator and see not a threat or competition, but a potential friend." Ryan remembered the Ravix cubs curling up against him, trusting him completely. "They knew I wouldn't hurt them." "Yes," Halrex said quietly. "Because you recognized them as children who needed protection, not as threats. Your predator instinct and your protective instinct work together at the same time. This is almost unheard of in galactic psychology." "Almost?" Lisa caught the word. Halrex was quiet for a moment. His leaves folded in a way that seemed worried. There is one other species that showed similar traits. The Cathari. They were obligate carnivores, apex predators on their world, but they also developed complex social bonding and cooperative behavior. They were one of the first species to achieve space travel. I've never heard of the Cathari, Ryan said. No, Hal Rex agreed. You wouldn't have. They were quarantined 800 years ago after the Cathari expansion wars. In 30 years, they conquered 47 star systems before the rest of the galaxy could organize a response. They were too good at fighting, too comfortable with violence, and too skilled at forming alliances even with prey species who should have feared them. It took a coalition of 200 worlds to stop them. The meaning behind his words settled over them like a heavy weight. You think humans will do the same thing? Ryan said. His voice was flat, emotionless. Some people think that, Hal Rex admitted. The video of you with the Ravix cubs has terrified the Galactic Council. If humans can naturally bond with predator species, if you can turn potential enemies into allies, if you can fight like predators while thinking cooperatively like prey species, you represent something the galaxy hasn't seen since the Cathari, something that doesn't fit our understanding of how things work. Lisa stood up quickly. So what, we're supposed to be quarantined? Kept isolated because we might be too dangerous? That is being discussed, Hal Rex said gently. Earth was invited to join the galactic community, but that invitation might be taken back. Your species might be deemed too unstable, too unpredictable. Ryan looked up at the oak tree above him. He thought about home, about Earth. His planet had been so excited to join the galaxy, to learn from thousands of older civilizations. The idea that it could all be taken away because he showed kindness to frightened animals seemed crazy. What do you think, Professor? Ryan asked. Do you think humans are dangerous? Hal Rex was quiet for a long time. I think, he said finally, that humans are something new. Dangerous, yes, but maybe that's necessary. The galaxy has been at peace for 600 years because prey species avoid conflict at all costs. But peace isn't the same as justice. Order isn't the same as progress. The Cathari were dangerous, but they also brought innovations, art, and ideas that the galaxy still uses today. Maybe humans will do the same. Or maybe we'll start a war, Lisa said bitterly. Maybe, Hal Rex agreed, but that's not a choice I can make. The Galactic Council will decide Earth's fate in 3 weeks. Until then, I suggest you continue being yourselves. Show them who humans really are, not who they fear you might be. The professor gathered his pads and stood up, but he paused before leaving, looking back at Ryan. For what it's worth, young human, what you did with those cubs wasn't frightening. It was beautiful. You saw frightened children and offered comfort regardless of species or danger. That's not the action of a mindless predator. That's the action of someone with wisdom and compassion. After he left, Ryan and Lisa sat in silence under the Earth tree. They watched alien students pass by in the artificial sunlight, wondering if this garden would be one of the last places Earth plants would grow among the stars. The weight of representing their entire species pressed down on them. Every action they took, every word they spoke, every choice they made would be examined and judged. One mistake could doom humanity's future in the galaxy. Ryan thought about the Ravix cubs again. They hadn't judged him. They hadn't feared him because of what he might do. They had simply responded to what he actually did. Maybe that was the key. Maybe humans just needed to show the galaxy who they really were through their actions, not their potential. But 3 weeks suddenly seemed like a very short time to prove the worth of an entire species. The Galactic Council chamber was massive beyond anything Ryan had imagined. It could hold 5,000 delegates from 300 member species, all gathered in a space station that orbited neutral territory between 4 major stellar nations. Ryan had seen pictures in his textbooks, but seeing it in person was overwhelming. Beings that looked like they came from dreams and nightmares filled the seats, speaking in hundreds of languages that were translated into his earpiece in real time. Students weren't supposed to attend council sessions. But Professor Hal Rex had called in favors and pulled strings to get Ryan a seat in the observation gallery. Lisa sat beside him, and a diplomatic escort from the chick species stood nearby with strict instructions not to let them speak during the proceedings. The question before this council is simple, declared High Arbiter Zenthos. The being was made of crystal that split light into rainbow patterns as it moved. Its voice resonated through the chamber without need for translation. Do we permit humanity full membership in the galactic community, Or do we classify them as a restricted species requiring quarantine and observation? The chamber immediately filled with voices. Hundreds of delegates tried to speak at once. The Lear delegation, their earstalks trembling with emotion, were among the first to be heard. "They are predators," the lead Lear representative said. Her voice shook. "Apex predators with demonstrated ability to bond with other predator species. The precedent is clear. The Cathari had similar traits, and we all remember the cost of allowing them into our society." Ryan felt his stomach tighten. The Cathari comparison again. It seemed like everyone in the galaxy knew that story. A Krell delegate stood up, his silver scales catching the light from the chamber's sun simulation system. Ryan recognized him as Ambassador Torvin, one of the few predator species representatives on the council. "The Cathari comparison is flawed," Torvin said, his deep voice carrying authority. "Yes, humans are predators. Yes, they show unusual social bonding, but unlike the Cathari, humans have demonstrated restraint. They developed nuclear weapons and didn't destroy themselves. They found other predators on their world and chose to live alongside them, rather than exterminate them. They came to the stars seeking friendship, not conquest." "One video of a human with tame cubs proves nothing," a Venn delegate countered. "It may simply demonstrate that they are skilled at deception, at gaining trust before they strike." Ryan's hands clenched into fists. Lisa put her hand on his arm, a silent reminder to stay quiet. The debate continued for hours. Charts and statistics appeared on massive holographic screens floating throughout the chamber. Human psychology was analyzed. Human history was examined in painful detail. Every war Earth had ever fought was discussed. Every peace treaty was scrutinized. Experts testified, many of them arguing that humanity's combination of predatory instincts and social cooperation made them uniquely dangerous. Then Instructor Vexnar requested permission to speak. The Krell professor walked to the central platform, and the entire chamber fell silent. His presence commanded attention in a way few others could match. "I am the instructor who brought Ravik's cubs into a classroom," Vexnar began. "I have been criticized for this decision, and perhaps that criticism is deserved. But what occurred that day has been misunderstood by this council." He activated a holographic display. The now famous video of Ryan approaching the cubs played on screens throughout the chamber. "You see a human exhibiting unusual behavior. You fear what it represents, but you are asking the wrong question. You ask if humans are dangerous. You should be asking why those cubs responded the way they did." The chamber remained quiet, listening. "Ravik's cubs are raised in isolation," Vexnar continued. "They know only their siblings and handlers from birth. They had never encountered a human before, yet when faced with this human they did not attack. They did not flee. They recognized something in this being that their instincts understood." "Do you know what that was?" He paused, letting the question hang in the air. "Safety, not threat. Not prey, not competition, safety. Those cubs, operating on pure instinct shaped by millions of years of evolution, identified a human as a protector, as pack, as family." Another hologram appeared showing various Earth animals. Wolves, dogs, cats, horses, birds. Humans have domesticated more species than any civilization in galactic records. They form bonds with predators, with prey, with everything in between. They don't do this through domination or manipulation. They do it through understanding, through empathy, through recognizing that different species can coexist and even love each other. A delegate from a species Ryan didn't recognize spoke up. "This proves they are skilled at manipulation. They could use this ability to infiltrate our societies, turn our populations against us." "Could they?" Vexnar challenged. "Or is your fear preventing you from seeing what they actually represent?" The Cathari conquered through force. They dominated. They subjugated. Humans have been at the Galactic Academy for 3 years now. How many wars have they started? How many conflicts have they initiated? Silence filled the chamber. 0, Vexnar stated. "In fact, I have documented 17 instances of human students intervening to prevent conflicts between other species. They mediate. They build consensus. They protect the vulnerable even when it costs them social standing or puts them at personal risk." He gestured toward the observation gallery, and Ryan felt thousands of alien eyes turned toward him. He wanted to disappear, but he forced himself to sit still. Ryan Martinez sat on a floor with 3 predator cubs and showed them kindness when every instinct should have told him to flee or fight. He didn't do this for personal gain. He didn't do this for recognition. He did it because he saw frightened children who needed comfort. That is not the behavior of a conqueror. That is the behavior of a guardian. High Arbiter Zenthos' crystalline form shifted, refracting light in new patterns. Professor Vexnar, are you suggesting we accept humans into the galactic community without restrictions? I am suggesting, Vexnar said carefully, choosing each word with precision, that we consider what we might become with their help. We have built a civilization based on avoiding conflict. This has brought us peace, yes, but it has also made us stagnant. We fear change. We fear difference. We fear anything that doesn't fit our comfortable understanding. Humans don't fit, but perhaps that's exactly what we need. The debate started again, but something had changed. Ryan could feel it in the atmosphere of the chamber. Delegates who had been arguing for restriction now seemed uncertain. Questions were being asked that hadn't been asked before. The discussion went on for 8 more hours. Ryan's legs went numb from sitting. His head ached from the stress. But he couldn't look away as the fate of his entire species was decided by beings from across the galaxy. Finally, High Arbiter Zenthos raised a crystalline hand for silence. All those in favor of granting humanity full membership status without restrictions? The voting display lit up with colors representing each species' decision. Ryan held his breath. The colors shifted and changed as votes were counted in real time. Some sections of the display were solidly one color, showing unanimous agreement. Others flickered between multiple colors as individual delegates from the same species voted differently. The final count appeared on the central screen. Ryan stared at the numbers, almost afraid to believe what he was seeing. 62% in favor. Humanity would join the galactic community as full members. The chamber erupted. Some delegates were celebrating. Others were protesting. But the decision was made and recorded. There was no taking it back now. Lisa grabbed Ryan's hand and squeezed so hard it hurt. Their chick's escort was smiling, something Ryan had never seen the insectoid species do before. The diplomat's mandibles clicked in a rhythm that the translator told him meant joy. As they prepared to leave, Professor Halrex found them in the corridor outside the chamber. His leaves were bright green, a sign of happiness in Ven body language. "It is done," he said simply. "Your species is now part of something larger than yourselves. I hope you are ready for what comes next." "What does come next?" Ryan asked. The relief he felt was overwhelming, but beneath it was uncertainty. Halrex's leaves rustled in what might have been amusement. "That, young human, depends entirely on what you choose to do with this opportunity. Show the galaxy who you are, and perhaps in time, help us remember who we could be." They walked out of the council station together, past delegates from hundreds of worlds, past beings made of crystal and leaf and scale and shell. Ryan thought about the Ravix cubs, about the simple act of kindness that had led to this moment. He thought about his grandfather's ranch, about learning to approach scared animals with patience and understanding. Maybe that was all humans needed to do. Approach the galaxy with patience and understanding. Show through actions rather than words that predators and prey could coexist, could cooperate, could build something better together. The future was uncertain. The challenges ahead would be enormous. But for now, humanity had earned its place among the stars. 6 months had passed since the council vote. Ryan Martinez now worked at the Interspecies Conservation Station, a massive facility that orbited a planet called Vexnor Prime. The station housed some of the galaxy's most endangered predator species, and 6 months ago it had been staffed entirely by Krell handlers wearing heavy armor and using sedatives to manage the animals. Now, as Ryan walked through the habitat areas, he passed 3 other humans working alongside handlers from a dozen different species. Nobody wore armor anymore. Nobody needed it. The Ravix cubs weren't cubs anymore. At 8 months old, they were the size of Earth lions, with scales that shimmered in rainbow patterns and 6 eyes bright with intelligence. The largest, Luna, bounded toward Ryan as he entered their enclosure. She was so big now that when she pressed her head against his chest in greeting, she nearly knocked him over. "Easy, girl," Ryan said, laughing as he scratched behind her ears. "You're getting too big for this," but he didn't really mind. Luna made her grinding rock purr, a sound that meant she was happy. Her siblings, Mars and Sol, were wrestling nearby, their play fighting sometimes rough but never crossing into real aggression. Kate Morgan, a xenobiologist from Australia, approached with her electronic pad. She had joined the station 3 months ago and had quickly become one of the best handlers. "They still respond to you better than anyone else," she said. "We've had handlers try to copy your techniques, but there's something about the way you interact with them that we can't quite figure out." "I just treat them like individuals," Ryan said, watching Mars and Sol tumble across the habitat floor. "They're not just dangerous animals. They're smart, emotional, social creatures who need enrichment and connection just like any intelligent being." "The Galactic Council is watching every success here," Kate reminded him. "Every predator species that humans can work with safely proves that accepting us was the right decision. But the pressure is intense. One major incident, one serious attack, and the people who wanted to restrict us will have the evidence they need to push for reversing the integration." Ryan knew she was right. Earth's acceptance into the galactic community had been conditional in practice, even if not in law. Humans were being watched constantly, evaluated against impossible standards. Every human in the galaxy had become a representative of their species, whether they wanted to be or not. "Then we won't give them an incident," Ryan said simply. His communicator buzzed. Lisa's face appeared on the small screen and she looked worried. "Ryan, turn on Galactic News Network. Right now." He pulled up the feed on his pad. Kate looked over his shoulder. The news was showing live footage from a planet called Tyrnos, a Lear colony world on the edge of contested space. The images were chaotic and frightening. Buildings were on fire. Crowds of Lear civilians were running in panic. And at the center of it all was a pack of Vorks raiders. The Vorks were one of the galaxy's restricted predator species. They were massive creatures built like gorillas but with reptilian features and natural armor plating. They were known across several systems for their territorial aggression and violence. "They're demanding territory," the news anchor reported. The Ven reporter's leaves were trembling with fear. "The Lear government has no military force capable of opposing predators. The galactic peacekeepers are 3 days away. Casualties are expected to be catastrophic." Kate's hand covered her mouth. "Those people have no defense against predators. The Lear evolved as pure prey species. They have no concept of combat, no weapons training, no way to fight back. It's going to be a massacre." Ryan was already moving toward the station's command center. His mind was racing, putting together a plan even as he walked. He found Director Zaxelin, a Krell administrator, watching the same news feed with a grim expression. "I'm going," Ryan said without introduction. Zaxelin turned his silver-scaled head slowly. "That is not your responsibility, Student Martinez. You are a researcher and animal handler, not a soldier. Those people need help now, not in 3 days. And I'm not just a researcher. I'm a human. We understand predators. One human against a Vorks pack." Zaxelin's tone made it clear he thought Ryan was crazy. "They will tear you apart. The Vorks don't bond like your Ravix cubs. They are driven by territorial aggression and bloodlust. They kill without mercy." "Maybe," Ryan admitted, "but maybe they're also just scared and acting out. Maybe they're being pushed out of their own territory and lashing out because they don't know what else to do. Maybe someone needs to talk to them instead of fighting them." Zaxelin stared at him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he nodded. "If you are determined to do this, I cannot stop you. But you will not go alone." Within an hour, Ryan was on a fast transport ship with Lisa and 2 other humans from the station. Greg Palmer was a former Marine who had left military service to work with animals. Nicole Brooks was a xenopsychologist who specialized in predator behavior. The Galactic Council had granted emergency authorization for their mission, though Ryan suspected it was less about faith in their plan and more about having humans available as scapegoats if everything went wrong. The transport dropped them at the edge of the conflict zone on Tyrnos. The city was in complete chaos. Lear civilians huddled in buildings while Vorks raiders, each one easily 10 feet tall and weighing several tons, smashed through barriers and roared their dominance. The sound was terrifying, designed by evolution to paralyze prey with fear. "This is insane," Greg muttered, checking the non-lethal deterrence devices they'd been issued. "We're walking into an active combat situation." "It's not combat," Nicole corrected, her eyes scanning the Vorks' behavior patterns. "Look at how they're moving. They're not hunting the Lear. They're displaying. This is territorial intimidation, not predation. They're trying to scare everyone away, not kill them." Ryan watched the nearest Vorks, a massive male who seemed to be the pack's alpha. The creature's roars were loud and aggressive, designed to terrify. But his eyes, small and intelligent, were constantly scanning for threats. He was being defensive, not offensive. "They're scared," Ryan said as understanding dawned. Something pushed them here. "They're trying to defend themselves by attacking first, making themselves look so dangerous that nothing will challenge them." He started walking toward the Vork's pack before the others could stop him. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. Adrenaline flooded his system, making everything seem bright and sharp. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to hide, to survive. But he pushed past the instinct, trusting what he'd learned working with predators. The Alpha Vork spotted him immediately. The creature's roar shook the air, a sound so deep and powerful that Ryan felt it in his bones. It was designed by millions of years of evolution to paralyze prey with fear. Ryan felt his muscles lock up, his body responding to programming buried deep in his genes. But he forced himself to take another step, then another. "Hey," Ryan called out, keeping his voice steady despite his terror. "You're safe. Nobody here wants to hurt you." The Vorks charged. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion. Ryan saw every detail with crystal clarity. The creature's muscles bunching, its claws extended, each one as long as his forearm, its mouth open, revealing teeth that could crush bone like paper. In 2 seconds it would reach him. In 3 he would be dead. Ryan sat down. The action was so unexpected that the Vork stumbled. Its charge broke as it tried to understand what the prey was doing. Prey ran, prey hid. Prey screamed and tried to escape. Prey didn't sit down and wait calmly. "You're safe," Ryan repeated, softer now. He could smell the Vorks, a scent like hot metal and musk. "Nobody here is your enemy. You can rest now." The Vork's alpha stood over him, breathing hard, clearly confused. Its pack had stopped their displays to watch what their leader would do. This was the critical moment. If Ryan had misjudged, if his understanding of predator psychology was wrong, the next few seconds would be his last. The Vorks lowered its massive head and sniffed Ryan's hair. Its breath was hot and smelled of meat. Ryan remained perfectly still, letting the creature investigate him, letting it learn his scent and decide if he was a threat. Then the Vorks did something that would be analyzed by xenopsychologists for years to come. It sat down beside Ryan. The news drones captured everything. Within minutes, the image of a human sitting peacefully beside a Vork's raider was being broadcast across the galaxy. Nicole approached slowly, then Lisa, then Greg. They sat in a circle with the Vork's pack, and Ryan began asking questions through his translator. The story that emerged was tragically simple. The Vorks had been driven from their territory by mining operations. Their hunting grounds were destroyed. Their pack was scattered. They had come to Tyrnos not to conquer, but because they were desperate, starving, and terrified. The aggressive displays were defensive, an attempt to secure territory where they could survive. By the time the Galactic peacekeepers arrived, the crisis was over. The Vork's pack was being relocated to a protected reserve. The Lear colonists were unharmed, and Ryan Martinez had demonstrated once again that humans possessed a unique ability to bridge the gap between predator and prey species, to find peaceful solutions where others saw only violence. 3 weeks after the incident on Tyrnos, Ryan sat in Professor Halrex's office at the Galactic Academy. The room was filled with plants from the professor's homeworld, their leaves creating a gentle rustling sound as air circulated through the space. On the desk between them lay a document that could change everything. "The Interspecies Mediation Corps," Halrex read aloud, his forearms holding the proposal carefully. "A new branch of the Galactic Peacekeepers dedicated to resolving conflicts involving predator species through understanding rather than force." "We're good at it," Ryan said. His voice was calm, but inside he felt nervous. This was important, maybe the most important thing he would ever propose. Humans understand both sides. We're predators who chose cooperation over conquest. We're social creatures who understand the need for territory and resources. We can talk to predator species without fear and prey species without aggression. We can be translators, not just of language but of instinct and need. Halrex set down the document and looked at Ryan with those gentle herbivore eyes. This could change the galaxy. For 600 years we have maintained peace by isolating predators, restricting them, sometimes even eliminating them when they became too dangerous. If you can find another way, if you can build bridges instead of walls, the implications are staggering. Then maybe we prove that the Cathari weren't a warning, Ryan said. Maybe they were just ahead of their time. Maybe the galaxy is ready for something new, for a better way of handling conflict. The professor was quiet for a long moment. His leaves shifted through colors, a sign of deep thought in his species. Finally, he picked up his official seal and pressed it to the document. The holographic mark appeared, glowing softly, making the proposal official and endorsed. I hope you're right, Ryan Martinez. I hope humans are the bridge we need between predator and prey, between conflict and cooperation. Because if you are not, if humanity proves to be just another Cathari, the consequences will be severe for everyone. We won't be, Ryan said with more confidence than he felt. We'll be ourselves, and that will have to be enough. 2 months later, Ryan stood before the Galactic Council once more, but this time he wasn't a student under scrutiny. He was the founder of something new. Around him stood 19 other humans, each one carefully selected for their ability to work with predator species. There was Kate Morgan, who could calm frightened animals with just her voice. Greg Palmer, whose military training helped him understand territorial conflicts. Nicole Brooks, whose psychological expertise made her invaluable in negotiations. And 16 others, each bringing their own unique skills. High Arbiter Zenthos regarded them with that unreadable crystalline gaze. Light refracted through the being's body, creating rainbow patterns on the chamber floor. The Interspecies Mediation Corps is hereby established as an experimental program under Galactic Peacekeeper oversight. You will have 3 years to prove your concept. 3 years to demonstrate that predators and prey can coexist through understanding rather than separation. We won't let you down, Ryan promised. See that you don't, the Arbiter replied. The crystal being's voice resonated through the chamber. The future of your species, and perhaps the future of the galaxy itself, depends on your success. As they left the council chamber, Lisa walked beside Ryan. She had volunteered to join the Corps as well, serving as a liaison between the human teams and the galactic peacekeepers. Her expression was thoughtful as they walked through corridors filled with delegates from hundreds of worlds. Do you really think we can do this? She asked quietly. Change how an entire galaxy thinks about predators and prey? That's been the foundation of their civilization for thousands of years. Ryan thought about Luna and her siblings, now thriving at the conservation station. He thought about the Vorks pack, relocated to a reserve where they could hunt and live in peace instead of being destroyed. He thought about every frightened predator he'd calmed, every prey species student he'd helped understand that teeth and claws didn't automatically mean danger. I think someone has to try, Ryan said slowly. For 600 years the galaxy has been divided into predators and prey, dangerous and safe, us and them. Maybe it's time someone reminded everyone that we're all just trying to survive, trying to find our place in the universe, trying to protect what we love. Whether we have fangs or not doesn't change that basic truth. Their first assignment came faster than expected. A mining colony on the edge of Venn space was reporting attacks by native predators. The local government wanted permission to exterminate the species. The galactic peacekeepers wanted to send a military force to contain them. But now there was a third option. Ryan and his team arrived to find the situation was complicated. The predators, a species called the Raxnell, were intelligent but pre-space flight. The mining operations had destroyed their primary hunting grounds, and they were attacking the colony out of desperation, not malice. The miners, mostly Venn who had never encountered aggressive predators before, were terrified and demanding action. It took 2 weeks of patient work. Ryan and his team spent days observing the Raxnell, learning their behavior patterns, understanding their needs. They negotiated with the mining company to relocate their operations to areas that didn't interfere with hunting grounds. They set up communication protocols that allowed the Raxnell to signal when they felt threatened. They trained the miners in predator behavior so they could recognize the difference between a threat display and actual aggression. When they left, the attacks had stopped. The Raxnell had their territory back. The miners had their colony, and both species were learning to coexist peacefully. News of their success spread quickly. Requests for assistance started coming in from across the galaxy. A territorial dispute between Krell clans that threatened to become violent. A pack of juvenile predators orphaned by habitat destruction and becoming aggressive. A prey species colony accidentally built on a migration route for a predator species, leading to conflicts that neither side understood how to resolve. The Interspecies Mediation Corps handled each situation differently, but the core approach remained the same. Understand both sides. Find common ground. Build bridges instead of walls. Show that predators weren't monsters and prey species weren't helpless victims. Show that every species, regardless of what they ate or how they evolved, wanted the same basic things: safety, territory, the ability to raise their young in peace. 1 year into the experimental program, Ryan returned to the conservation station for a visit. Luna came bounding toward him immediately, now fully grown and magnificent. Her scales shimmered in the artificial sunlight, and her 6 eyes were bright with intelligence and joy. She pressed her massive head against his chest, purring that grinding rock sound that meant happiness. "She still remembers you," Kate said, smiling. "They all do. Every animal you've worked with, every predator you've calmed, they remember the human who showed them kindness when they expected fear or violence." Ryan scratched behind Luna's ears, marveling at how much she'd grown. "That's what we do, isn't it? We remember. We form bonds that last. That's what makes us human, I think. Not the forward-facing eyes or the canine teeth. The ability to see another living being and choose connection over conflict." Kate nodded. "The galaxy is changing because of what you started. Slowly, but it's changing. Prey species are starting to understand that not all predators are threats. Predator species are finding alternatives to violence. The Interspecies Mediation Corps has handled 47 conflicts in the past year, and only 2 required any kind of military intervention. That's unprecedented. It's not just me," Ryan said. "It's all of us. Every human who chose to see past the fear and prejudice. Every alien who was willing to give us a chance despite what happened with the Cathari. Every predator who trusted us, and every prey species who learned that understanding is stronger than fear." That evening, Ryan stood in the observation deck of the conservation station, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, the small blue world that had produced a species too strange to fit any category, too predatory to be prey, too social to be solitary hunters, too empathetic to be mindless killers. His communicator chimed. It was a message from the Galactic Council. The experimental program was being extended. The Interspecies Mediation Corps was being made permanent. Humanity had proven its worth not through conquest or domination, but through compassion and understanding. Lisa's message came through next. "We did it, Ryan. We actually did it. Earth is secure. Humanity has found its place in the galaxy." Ryan smiled, thinking about that day in the classroom 6 months ago when 3 scared Ravix cubs had roared their fear and he had sat down on the floor. Such a simple action, but it had changed everything. It had shown the galaxy that humans were different, yes, dangerous, yes, but also capable of incredible kindness, of seeing past instinct to find understanding. Luna appeared beside him in the observation deck, having followed him from her enclosure. The station staff had long since given up trying to keep her confined when Ryan was visiting. She sat beside him, looking out at the stars with her 6 eyes, her massive body warm against his side. "What do you see out there?" Ryan asked her softly. "Do you understand that you helped change the galaxy? That you and your sibling